This past weekend was WrestleMania Goes Hollywood, the sequel. But this video is WrestleMania Goes Hollywood the first time. WrestleMania 21. But before I roll that open and I talk about WrestleMania 21, let me just talk about last weekend's WrestleMania a little bit. And how that it fully embodied what my shirt says. Wrestling sucks, but I love it. So, there are moments in time that really are just no good. And one of those are injuries. And so, Shane McMahon made a surprise return and very quickly blew out his quad. I think he's about the same age as his dad was when he did the same thing. But I bring this up because Snoop Dogg did a really cool thing and improvised very creatively to save the segment and get the focus off of the injury. So, way to go, Snoop Dogg. And, but before I roll that open and talk about WrestleMania 21, I've got to talk to you, the viewer, about my 68-page graphic novel, Everlasting Survivors, Volume 1, all day long. There are multiple covers available on Indiegogo. There's a link to the Indiegogo campaign in the description of this video. This is cover A by Jeff Hicks. This is cover B by Nick Crook. There are C cover, D cover, E cover. There are all kinds of options. There are t-shirts and hats, and everybody who makes a purchase gets a sticker. Thank you for tuning in to this retro review of WrestleMania 21. After the open, I'll break it all down. WrestleMania 21 begins how Vince McMahon loves to do it, with the singing of America the Beautiful, this time by Lillian Garcia. Good overall graphics and video work here. I'd just rather this be on the cutting room floor. To start the show, I'd like to see some wrestling. I do find it funny, though, that when I paused, because I forgot that it started with the singing, and saw that the show ran 3 hours and 45 minutes, it felt kind of short, since WWE and AEW have gotten in the habit of running much, much longer shows. So it's nice to see a show that's under 4 or 5 or even 8 hours, like some of the crazier WrestleManias got before they split it into 2 days. I understand that Vince is not a fan of wrestling, or so it seems a lot of times. But if the show had to start with something that isn't professional wrestling, I think I would have preferred it to start with these movie trailer parodies. Because seeing Eugene as Tom Cruise in Forrest Gump, or Booker T as Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction, John Cena, he's Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, and Triple H plays Mel Gibson from Braveheart. The Undertaker, he was Clint Eastwood from Dirty Harry. It was just all so much fun. And then we get a brand new trailer with Stone Cold Steve Austin as Russell Crowe in Gladiator. When the pyro hits after the voiceover guy says it is now time for WrestleMania, I just remembered what the opening match is. It's Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero, and I'm super excited. I love hearing good old JR welcome us to the show, even though Taz and Michael Cole at this time was my preferred team, because I just thought SmackDown was hitting on all cylinders. And thankfully, they are the ones calling this Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio match. Man, I love Eddie Guerrero so much. This is the first time ever in WrestleMania history that we have tag team champion versus tag team champion. Both guys look great, as Taz says it. Taz says it right, that these guys have the power to steal the show. Both of these guys just bring back so many great WCW memories. They have a rich history, and everything they do is just hard-hitting, fast-paced, and beautiful. My one big gripe about this match, and it's not just the match, but it's kind of a complaint about Rey Mysterio. But I wrote it this way. I said, if Eric Bischoff told me that he had Rey Mysterio take off his mask in WCW because he spent too much time adjusting it, that it took him out of a match, that Rey was messing with his match so much that he didn't take the right amount of time to convince people that he was in pain, then I think I could have been convinced to be on board with that decision. But outside of that one small complaint about the mask touching, this thing was just so much fun. Rey defeats Eddie with a surprise pin in 12 minutes. To me, this is a 4 out of 5 star match. They, like I said, other than that one little complaint when it comes to Rey and his mask, and it's not this match, it's just him. And, masks in general, I'm sure that they've got to be uncomfortable. But I love that they shake hands at the end of the match, even though I remember, and it was fairly clear from the start, that Eddie was going to be turning on Rey in short order. After that very good match, we get an underappreciated backstage segment with the WWE Champion JBL and his cabinet of the United States Champion Orlando Jordan, along with Doug and Danny Basham. They run into the World Heavyweight Champion Triple H and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. I love this moment because both top guys from Raw and SmackDown are both bad guys who are funny as hell, but also have a really good serious side of their characters. And the funny thing is that both of the top bad guys think that they're going to walk away tonight with their championship still intact. We'll wait and see, but odds are that's not good. Regarding first, the opening match isn't the only first-time match here tonight, because up next is the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match, where Chris Jericho takes on Chris Benoit, Shelton Benjamin, Kane, Edge, and Christian. Christian being accompanied to ringside by Tyson Tomko. My goodness, entrance theme songs are so good in this era. Also recognizable, unlike today when most of the time you have to see the graphics on the Tron to even know who's coming out. I hate that Christian didn't get the push to the top of this company at this time and had to leave to be treated as a top guy just to inevitably come back and still not be treated respectfully. Shelton Benjamin is another dude here. I'm blown away. Never got to the top. He's just so talented. And I know that it's a big no-no to say good things about Chris Benoit, but his ability to transition from move to move and from hold to counter hold is just smooth. He literally countered an attempted chokeslam into a crossface. I have taken a not insignificant number of bumps in wrestling, but it is hard for me to wrap my head around how hot a crowd would have to be for me to take one of these ladder spots, any one of them, whether it's falling off or getting hit with it, and being able to have that much adrenaline flowing through to where that I can keep going. It blows me away. Speaking of the insanity of this match, Shelton Benjamin hit a T-bone suplex off the top of a ladder, and it was just so hardcore. Here it comes. Jericho's climbing up the ladder, and a second ladder is leaning onto this, the one that he's climbing. It's such a legendary spot. Shelton Benjamin runs up the leaning ladder to clothesline Jericho. So spectacular. This was an OMG moment in video games for years to come. A part of me, looking back, wishes Shelton Benjamin had won this match, being that Edge would have been pushed regardless of whether he won Money in the Bank. It feels like almost like a missed opportunity. And another thing is watching Benoit hit headbutts. It's both not fun and just feels so stupid, especially given, the way things would go. Edge gets big time hate when he finally does win the match and defeats Benoit, Jericho, Kane, Benjamin, and Christian. The match went 15 minutes and 10 seconds. To me, it's a 6 out of 5 star match. I think this is just a spectacular spectacle of a display of athletic ability. After that, the crowd needs a cool down, so here comes Nick Dinsmore. Crazy to think the character of Eugene was created because Dinsmore was thought to be too much like Chris Benoit in the ring, and Vince already had Benoit. Even though I'd have preferred Dinsmore to be allowed to be the standout wrestler he is, or was, I guess. I mean, still is, still a wrestler. I have to say that the enthusiasm of the Eugene character was always very infectious, and it was cool to see the people happy. I ask myself, can WWE have two more polar opposite characters? Always happy Eugene and never happy Muhammad Hassan in the ring at the same time. Sean Daivari, who came out with Muhammad Hassan, was such a heat magnet. I wish he and his brother would have gotten a run as a tag team. I love brother tag teams, whether it's Harlem Heat, the Steiner Brothers, or the Hardy Boys. It's always just one of the best things that wrestling can do, which is lean into the reality of the relationship. Here to save the day, and more specifically, here to save Eugene, freshly in the Hall of Fame Hollywood Hulk Hogan, so freaking over. He gets cheered just for pointing, which is always so funny to me. Overall, the segment took a bit too long, in my opinion, but it was a good break from the 100-mile-per-hour action that first Money in the Bank offered. Up next, we have the 12-0 Undertaker being challenged in that streak by the legend killer Randy Orton. WWE know how to make a hype package. This legend killer video is so impressive. Seeing Cowboy Bob Orton beg the Undertaker for mercy on his boy, it is just it's surprising to see the Undertaker enter the ring first for a match, just because he has that aura of the top guy, regardless of whether it was 91 or here in 2005 or even at the end of his career. He's just always had that, I entered last type of style in my mind. But speaking of entrances, hey, nothing you can say. That theme song, and with that gold rain pyro, it always is such a great sound and sight to behold. And even this young Randy Orton knows how to garner that proper bad guy reaction. He's such a great, disrespectful punk kid, and they really got that across with the build-up of this match. But as the match begins, I've got to say I love that they go for striking instead of a lockup, because again, that's almost a pleasantry, not quite a pleasantry, but it's a polite open. It's see who's gonna get the control of the match, but not here. Nah, these guys, it's a heated rivalry, so they go at it just throwing hands, which I think is really cool. And speaking of cool, Undertaker hits that leg drop where he has his opponent draped on the outside of the ring, and it just always looks killer. So, big love for the Undertaker for this match. Even young Randy Orton is an aggressive wrestler. So much talent. This isn't the first time I wanted the Undertaker streak to end, but it was the first time I thought it could end, which is, saying something for Randy's talent and also the push. This period of the Undertaker's WrestleMania matches is among the best of his entire career. I mean, obviously this one here with Randy, but also Batista is coming up, Edge, and both of those matches with Shawn Michaels, along with the pair that he did with Triple H, and the one with CM Punk. Like, this was just the Undertaker delivering. This crowd is big time against Randy, chanting "Randy sucks." I forgot how good young Randy Orton was at getting hated. It's almost as if they learned their lesson from a smiling babyface, third-generation wrestler Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or pre-The Rock Rocky Maivia Johnson, and that's taking that example was beneficial to Randy. Undertaker putting Orton in a Dragon Sleeper is an example of why I'm not a fan of the tap out in wrestling, because when Randy's fighting to get out of the hold, multiple times it looks as though, to me, like you could interpret that as him giving up, and the ref has to ignore it because he knows it's not the finish. And that's why I like the affirmation of saying I quit, and it can't be mistaken for anything other than just the wrestle being done. Speaking of the referee, though, I wrote here, I was like, what is Earl Hebner made of? Because Randy Orton basically just runs near him and Earl falls. So the crowd loves it when the Undertaker reverses Randy trying to hit his tombstone pile driver. And from there, Undertaker does win and goes 13-0. The match went 14 minutes and 6 seconds. I give it a good 4 out of 5 star rating. Unfortunately, I'm not able to give not even a hope of a good rating to the next match, because I saw and then subsequently remembered what was coming up next, and it is, well, it's a big old failure. The match goes less than 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 40 seconds to be specific, and mercifully, that's for the best, because Christy Hemme, the first ever Raw Diva Search winner, is challenging Trish Stratus for the Women's Championship, which this match was never supposed to be anyway. It was meant to be Lita versus Trish, but Lita got injured en route to WrestleMania, and so Lita was just in the corner of Christy Hemme for the match. But like I said, Christy wasn't ready for it, and it was a fail. It's funny, so at one point, Jim Ross says, "It's over," and I said, well, it's not over, but it's finished. I've heard some people, especially here on the YouTube, say that this is the best match they've ever seen. I do believe that Brian Zane from Wrestling With Regret said it's the best match he'd ever seen in person. This one-on-one encounter between Mr. 1996 and Mr. 1996. The 1996 Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle taking on the 1996 the man who won or had his boyhood dream come true in 1996, Shawn Michaels. I know this is one of the most said statements when it comes to WWE, especially here on my channel, but the person who puts together these hype packages is the real MVP of the company. Everything just feels such big time, which is, I know, next year's tagline for the pay-per-view, but it's just so true that the person who puts these together doesn't make enough money. They deserve a bonus. Both guys here look like $1 million. Kurt always has great looking gear, and Shawn is debuting his new leather chap inspired pants as opposed to the long tights that he would wear for forever. It's astounding to think of what might have been in both of these guys' careers without injuries and without drug abuse. Shawn, who, even himself admits that he was an a-hole when he was on drugs and was out for 5 years due to back problems and drug problems. And then Kurt, who got cut from the company because he refused to go to rehab, was exiled for 10 years and had some of his best work being done when he was jokingly, although probably not jokingly, called Perk Angle. And it's interesting, those parallels between these two all-time greats. At the start, both guys are confident and smiling at each other, but Michael slaps the smile off of Angle's face. After Shawn slaps Kurt, he takes him down and proves his dominance. But Shawn comes back with a lot of basic wrestling headlocks and counters, and is really staying in control. It puzzles me how much Shawn is in control given Kurt's background from the Olympics. And I'm guessing that this confusion, this unexpected nature of the match is what makes people think that it is one of the best they've ever seen. The idea that Kurt Angle is playing more of the role of the professional wrestler and Shawn is taking on more of an amateur wrestling styling. It feels like to me that the surprise factor of it is what could play into people giving it such high praise. I mean, no knock on the match, obviously. My one big complaint, though, it comes, and it's the thing that really knocks this down from being a 5 out of 5 star great match and just gets it in that good 4 out of 5 range, is how much of a struggle Shawn puts into that ankle lock. And again, it goes back to the Dragon Sleeper complaint I have about Randy and Undertaker, and it's the idea that Shawn is making Kurt look weak the longer he maintains not giving up. It feels like that he's in this hold for like a half an hour, which I know is an exaggeration, because the match itself only goes not only, but it goes a total of 27 minutes and 16 seconds. But the duration of time that Shawn is able to withstand and not give up to the ankle lock really makes it feel less than. And I know that Kurt ends up winning the match, but I just feel like that if Shawn would have given up sooner, it would have made the hold look stronger, and you don't have that problem of, hey, nobody ever gets their body part broken in these submission holds. What good is it? Oh no, we're at it again. Another trash match. Well, I mean, can this one even be called a match? I mean, it's certainly not a wrestling match. They call it a sumo match. I feel bad for Paul White. I know this thing went no time, but even the short time it went was too long. For 3 minutes, after 3 minutes, Akebono defeats the Big Show in this so-called sumo match, but it's a 0 out of 5 stars to me. It's absolute trash. It shouldn't be here. I don't understand what Akebono has to do with Hollywood or going Hollywood or wrestling or whatever, so I'm just not a fan of this concept. As we approach the last 2 matches, I have to say that it's just good that in the year 2023, John Cena is back to how he was in 2005. No more of this, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. It's just a top guy being treated like a top guy. I just don't personally feel like the mixed reaction is good. To me, if your good guy is getting a mixed reaction, they should go bad until people start respecting them, and then boom, back to good. Thankfully here, in this WWE title match, JBL is such a good long-term bad guy that we have no question about it. John Cena is the good guy in the match. And the company wasted no time proving that when John Cena defeated John Bradshaw Layfield to become the new WWE champion in 11 minutes and 18 seconds. It's a very fine match, 3 out of 5, nothing, it's not special, but it did everything it needed to do. And so to me, the biggest issue with John is when he and Dave switched positions from Raw and SmackDown, Dave moving to SmackDown and John moving to Raw, and when John Cena lost all of his moxie, everything changed. He went from being a rapper that would end with a curse word to being a squeaky clean character with no nuance. And speaking of Dave, he is in the main event of this here show, where he defeats his mentor, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, in 21 minutes and 32 seconds. Ric Flair's out there with him. I swear this was originally intended for Randy Orton until his babyface turn went nowhere. Overall, it was a 4 out of 5 match. Again, it was good. And I feel like 4 out of 5 is how this entire show is. It's overall good. Nothing one match that was spectacular in the Money in the Bank. And it was a lot of fun. Come back Monday for my animation celebration of Wonder Woman from 2009. Come back Wednesday for the Wednesday Rewind, where we're continuing to review Limitless the show. And come back next Friday for an update on my Indiegogo campaign for Everlasting Survivors Volume 1 all day long, the relaunch. All right. Thank you. Enjoy.